Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about factoring quadratics using Desmos, also known as magic math. I've already showed you guys how to do the box method of factoring. I'm not going to show it now. I'm just showing you Desmos because that'll help the things we're getting ready to do. If you want to know the box method, I'll probably create another video for that. In the meantime, you can always Google and YouTube box method of factoring, and you get some pretty good videos. Alright, so let's try this one. 2x squared plus 3x minus 9. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go type that into Desmos. Alright, so we typed this into Desmos and it gives us negative 3 and 1.5. So I need to change that 1.5 into a fraction. It always has to be a fraction. So the easiest way to do that would be to type it in here. 1.5 and then hit this button here. It'll change it to a fraction, 3 over 2. So we have x equals negative 3. That's our x-intercept is negative 3. And our x-intercept over here is positive 3 over 2. So our x-intercepts, our zeros, are negative 3 and 1/2. So to factor that, we're going to put the bottom number in front of x. In this case, the bottom number is a 1, so it's just going to be x, and then we're going to change the sign. So it'll be x plus 3. This one, the bottom number, is going to be in front of x, and then we change the sign of the top number. Instead of positive 1, it'll be minus 1. And this is our answer. Let's do another one. So we have 5n squared plus 19n plus 12. We have to make the variables x. They always have to be x. And then we're going to type them into Desmos. Alright, so here we are at Desmos. Our zeros are negative 3 and then negative 0.8. Again, we need to change that 0.8 to a fraction. So I type in 0.8 and I hit this and it changes it to 4 over 5. So we have, and that's going to be a negative 4 over 5, right? Negative 3, negative 0.8, yes. So negative 4 over 5 and negative 3. So I go back to my problem. So our zeros are x equals negative 4 over 5 and x equals negative 3. Remember, the bottom number goes in front of x. And you change the top number sign when you're factoring. Bottom number is a 1, so that's just going to be x, and then change the sign to a plus 3. And that would be our answer for this problem. It's always a good idea to take this first number and multiply them together. 5x times x is 5x squared. And double check that up here to make sure that's the same thing. It is, so we know that that answer is correct. Let's do another one. So 4x squared plus 22x plus 10. We're going to put that in a Desmos. Alright, click on here to get my zeros, negative 5 and negative 0.5. So again, I'm going to change that to a fraction. And I get negative 1/2. So my zeros are negative 5 and negative 1/2. So x equals negative 5 and x equals negative 1/2. The bottom number goes in front of the x. In this case, the bottom number of this fraction is a 1, right? It's imaginary. And I changed the sign to the top number. Bottom number is a 2. I changed the sign to the top number. And here's where I was saying that you need to multiply these two. We're going to double check it. X times 2x is 2x squared. What should it be? It should be 4x squared. So what number do you need to multiply to 2 to get 4? You can divide. It would be a 2, right? So this 2 needs to go on the outside. And this would be your final answer. You'd have these three factors because you cannot forget the one on the outside. So always when you're using Desmos, since you're not really using math, you want to, when you multiply these two together, you want to make sure that it equals this one. And it doesn't. So you need to figure out what number to multiply to it to get it to equal this. Let's do another one. I think this other one. All right, so this one is 9x squared plus 66x plus 21. So I'm going to use Desmos. All right, so I typed it in, and our zeros, our x-intercepts are -7 and -0.33. This is a repeating decimal, so -0.333. If we hit the fraction now, it's going to give us this crazy fraction. This is a problem with Desmos and not doing real math. This is a repeating decimal, and Desmos really doesn't tell you that. But I'm going to put in here, and since I know it's repeating, I'm going to type in 3 until it gives me an actual better fraction. So one of the things, if you're using Desmos, you're going to need to know that 0.33 repeating is -1/3, or is 1/3. And you need to know that 0.666 repeating is 2/3. Otherwise, you're just going to have to try typing this in until you get the right answer. There's certain problems, which I'm getting ready to do, where Desmos just doesn't work at all, but I'm going to try to show you a workaround. For this one, we know that our zeros are x equals -7 and x equals -1/3. So I go back here, x equals -7 and x equals -1/3. So this would be x, and I changed the sign to positive. And this would be 3x, because the bottom number goes in front of the x, and I changed that to +1. And again, remember, if you're using Desmos, if you're not using math, you need to multiply these two together. You get 3x squared. That's not right, because it should be 9x. So what number do you multiply to 3 to get 9? And that would be a 3. So this is your final answer. If this 3 is not here, then it's wrong. So you need to always remember to check these first two to make sure that you get this. All right, let's do this one. 3x squared minus 2x minus 5. So again, I changed the a to an x and I put it in Desmos, and we get a -1 and a 1.667. So we need to change that 1.667 to a fraction. And if I hit this again, I get the crazy fraction. You have to remember that this 6 is repeating. So you just keep on hitting 6 until it gives you a normal fraction, 5 1/3. Again, it's one of the things you're just going to have to remember with these, but it's 5 1/3. So our zeros are -1 and 5/3. So go back here. Our zeros are x equals -1 and x equals 5/3. So factor this would be x plus 1. I change the sign. And this one, the bottom number in front of x. And then I change the sign to the top number. And then x times 3x is 3x squared. That's what it should be, so I know I did it right. Great, let's move on. All right, and here's the last one I'm going to do is this one, because this is really where Desmos kind of doesn't work. So 7x squared plus 11x plus 4. All right, so I'm going to zoom in a little closer so we can see our zeros, right? Because we've been looking at the zeros. So that's -1 and -0.571. Now this is where Desmos is a problem. -0.571 is not an easy fraction to figure out what it actually is. So -1 and some unknown number. What we're going to do is, because I can't figure this out, let's say I think that maybe this is repeating and it doesn't work, and for whatever reason I can't figure out what this one should be, but I know what this one should be. This one should be -1. So I know that one of them is -1, but the other one I don't know, because I can't change that decimal to a fraction. But I know that this one is x plus 1. This one, I don't know what it is. So let's see if we can figure it out. We know that this number times this number should be 7x squared. So x times what number would give us 7x squared? The answer is, if we divide both sides by x, the answer would be 7x. So we know that 7x goes here. We also know that this number times this last number should give us 4. So 1 times what number gives us 4? The opposite of multiplication is dividing, so we divide by 1 on both sides. 4. And it should be positive. So this would be our answer. And I had to do some math, some actual math to figure that one out. If we know that this should have been 4 over 7, right? Because the bottom number would go in front of the x and the top number's here. We can go back to Desmos and we can type, in Desmos we can type 4 divided by 7 and see if we get that fraction, that decimal I mean. And it does look like we do, so we know that was what we should have, that's what Desmos should have given us if Desmos was simpler. Anyway, that one's hard. I acknowledge that it's hard using Desmos. The only thing I can tell you is learn how to factor using actual math or figure it out like I just did. Most often, it's going to give you an actual repeating decimal, and that you need to learn. You need to learn how to identify those fractions. That's it. I feel like I was all over the place in this lesson, so I might have a follow-up lesson if I get a lot of questions. Thanks.